Good evening. It was the must-see event in Washington, D.C. today, unless, like President Obama, you were going out of your way not to see it. Not that it wasn't awkward for him when you consider you had the Prime Minister of Israel 2 weeks away from facing an election back home, standing before a joint meeting of the United States Congress and warning that President Obama's support of an agreement to freeze Iran's nuclear program is a bad deal. Benjamin Netanyahu didn't bite his tongue, saying the plan being negotiated will guarantee a nuclear Iran. And the White House didn't mince its own words in its reaction afterwards. Andrea Mitchell is our chief foreign affairs correspondent. Andrea, have we seen anything quite like this before?
No, we haven't. This was extraordinary. You had a foreign leader coming to Congress to lobby against a sitting U.S. president and warn of nuclear nightmare. Israel's prime minister arrived with all the pomp and circumstance of a State of the Union speech.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of Israel.
Even the guests, Nobel laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, next to Israel's First Lady. But instead of being delivered by the American president, this speech was aimed at the president and his Iran policy.
To defeat ISIS and let Iran get nuclear weapons would be to win the battle but lose the war.
Netanyahu said the deal John Kerry is negotiating would let Iran get a nuclear weapon. Iran's foreign minister Zarif asked about Netanyahu.
But I don't think trying to create tension and conflict helps anybody.
Netanyahu pulled out all stops, even addressing Elie Wiesel and invoking the Holocaust.
I wish I could promise you, Elie, that the lessons of history have been learned.
Netanyahu sees Obama's proposed 10-year nuclear freeze as an invitation for Iran to cheat.
In this deadly Game of Thrones, there's no place for America or for Israel. So when it comes to Iran and ISIS, the enemy of your enemy is your enemy.
Some Democrats boycotted the speech, and even those who attended criticized Netanyahu's all-or-nothing approach.
What if there is no agreement? What does he believe Iran will do, and what will Israel do, and what then would Israel expect us to do? He didn't say any of those things.
President Obama was also critical.
President Obama said you have no viable alternative to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Andrea, I'll tell you, it's very clear to me, and it was clear in that hall to anyone who was there, that the support for Israel is strongly bipartisan.
But the real audience for Netanyahu was in Israel, where voters watching back home go to the polls in just 2 weeks.
This was a campaign stop 6,000 miles away from the nearest Israeli voter, the most important campaign stop in this race.
The worry for the White House now is that after listening to Netanyahu, Congress will try to block any deal that John Kerry negotiates with Iran. Lester?
Andrea Mitchell on Capitol Hill. Thanks. Chris Jansing's at the White House now, where President Obama was quick to fire back. Chris, what did he have to say?
Well, good evening, Lester. With even some Democratic supporters of the president calling the speech powerful and persuasive, President Obama did indeed fire back point by point for 11 minutes from the Oval Office. He suggested the speech was theater and politics and criticized Netanyahu for offering no viable alternative.
The alternative that the prime minister offers is no deal, in which case Iran will immediately begin once again pursuing its nuclear program, accelerate its nuclear program, without us having any insight into what they're doing.
He also argued that the ongoing talks have actually kept Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He was responding after reading the speech. Here's where he was during it, in the Situation Room for a meeting added to his schedule just this morning. One senior White House official told me that given the rancor between the two leaders, this will be a tough couple of months going forward. And a high-ranking member of Congress said if there is a deal for them to vote on, get ready for a showdown on Capitol.